Welcome back, everybody, to Not Funny Guys Presents Red Dwarf Rewatch. All right, we're rolling right along. Remember, please like, subscribe, share. Join us in the comments. Tell us what you want more of. So we're going to keep doing Red Dwarf, but I am open to any suggestion. I'm literally telling you guys right now, any suggestions. Keep it clean, keep it positive. But here we are. We are on Series 4, Episode 4. White Hole, directed by Ed By, and we have a new director, Paul Jackson. Just a forecast, folks. I will be saying that Ed By will be leaving the show for another project at the end of the series, but we are still written by our creators, Rob Grant and Doug Naylor, and this episode was released on the 7th of March, 1991. Let's start with a summary. Holly has her intelligence briefly restored to an IQ, and when I say restored, it's supposed to be 6,000. She gets jumped up to 12,368. But the side effect of this is that her runtime has been reduced to mere minutes. Holly promptly switches herself off, leaving Red Dwarf with no lighting or maneuvering capacity. Everything is shut down. It's back to basics for the crew, and they must resort to their own resourcefulness to survive. Let's get into the details now. So we have this whole scramble and boot up system that we're looking through. It turns out we're looking through the toaster. Ah, yes. Crichton, his Lister comes in on the screen and immediately calls this thing mental. Why are you doing this? Says there was an accident. Well, Lister basically destroyed it. He comes back on. Howdy doodly doo. Lister instantly wants to get into a fight with it, talking about no pastries, no bread products. Toaster replies after a long list of him telling things he doesn't want. He says, "Oh, you're a waffle man." Crichton then tries to speak to it, threatens it, and he gets annoyed. And of course, Toasty has to let us know that his raison d'etre is "I toast, therefore I am." Crichton has only been doing this as part of an experiment. He has restored its intelligence by shortening its lifespan. He wants to see how this will play out because his ultimate aim is to do this to Holly, who is apparently suffering from computer senility, which is a thing. Rimmer comes in. He talks about why are we doing this. He talks about how the Eskimos know how to handle the elderly and the baffled. You take them out and you let them freeze to death. They did talk about all the things she could do if her IQ was like a time machine or a hyperdrive. And then they talk about the time machine. Rimmer wants to go back and be one of Napoleon's marshals. And Crichton basically apparently just wants to go to last week when he finished the laundry and they watched TV. Holly comes on, bumping her head against the screen. Toaster then makes some comments that starts her to kind of panic during the process of loading her, and she goes through this sort of up and down IQ leveling before she stabilizes, and she's a genius again. Not only is she a genius, but she can project herself like a freestanding hologram. And then Toaster proceeds to ask her really stupid questions that all end up in being a version of Toast. The computer, Holly basically says, "I've got an IQ of 12,000. And this is where the argument the Toaster keeps in, never lets it go. Talking to Toaster never lets it go. Now then, does bring up a valid question, though. Why did you get an IQ of 12,000 and not 6,000 originally? And Holly basically deduces that this means that her lifespan is reduced to 341. And then Toaster's like, "Oh, that's not bad. 341 is no. 300, that's minutes. And I forgot the decimal. So it's really 3.41 minutes. She immediately switches herself off. Now the crew is on their way back up to basically see what's going on. They were down in her main computer banks, and the whole ship shuts down. No noises, no power, no nothing. The doors won't open. And there are 53 doors between them and the science lab. And they talk about they need something about 6 foot tall, flat head, surface, and they decide to use Crichton. And they do use Crichton. And when they finally stand him up afterwards and they ask him how he is, he says, "I'm fine. Thank you, Susan." Yeah, that is what happens when you get used to the battering ram. They try to turn Holly on. She shuts herself off. She eventually tells them to go away. They eventually implement an override. And Rimmer is basically tries to get to explain her to explain the situation. She keeps using short single words. Rimmer's not catching on, and she calls him a smeghead. He can't seem to follow that she's dying. She has limited time. Finally they let her switch herself off, and they're basically left aimless in space now. And apparently Rimmer, they comment that Rimmer is linked to the emergency power source. And he's a massive power drain. And with him staying on, Kat and Lister probably about 2 months, when if they shut him off, he'd be 6. And he's not into this because it basically means that he will be fundamentally dead. They may not have enough to ever reboot him. Crichton comments on Space Corps Directive 195. This is, in an emergency power situation, a hologrammatic crew member must lay down his life in order that the living crew members might survive. Rimmer is not for this. He then corrects Rimmer Directive 271, which says, "No chance, you metal bastard." Because, of course, like I said, he might never be rebooted and physically dead. And then they go referencing Captain Oates. "I'm going for a walk. I may be gone for some time. Only know of this about Scott's diary." And he froze to death. And Rimmer thinks this could be a lie. And so Rimmer wins this battle of refusing to be switched off. And so Lister then talks about they have to be resourceful, and says, that's the worst thing you could have ever said. We're doomed. And then we skip forward. Kat is making Lister pedal a bicycle to power a dryer so he can try and fry an egg. Otherwise, they're stuck on cold beans again, and their room is starting to smell like a packet of peanuts. They decide that the best thing they can do is go to sleep and wait for Crichton and Rimmer to come back with supplies. Lister then is forced to get back on the bicycle to power the cat's electric blanket. He wants 8 hours. Crichton and Rimmer are on their way back, having to work their way up the decks, when they stumble upon an anomaly. Crichton ends up on one side and sounds like he's moving super fast. On the other side, Rimmer sounds like he's super slow, and then they switch places. And while they're on the same side of this anomaly divide, they sound normal, but they realize that they've got a situation with relative time dilation in a compressed space. And they want to go consult Holly about this. But before they do so, they basically discovered that what they're up against is called a white hole. It's the opposite of a black hole. Black hole takes time and space out of the universe. This spews it back in. And then they end up in this repeating part where time is out of joint and they keep jumping around to different points. Things are not in repetition or causality anymore, and they keep repeating themselves. So the laws of causality are not in play. Holly pulls up. Rimmer tries to then do to her what she did to him earlier, where he tries to speak in one thing, and she basically gets short with him and tells he's unintelligent. Eventually, they convince her what situation. Holly then spits out a chip. They take it to Starbug. And basically what she has come up with is an idea of playing a game of pool to shoot a planet into the white hole, closing it. Lister basically wants to do the mission himself manually, because he's basically points out that according to she would mess this up. Her plan won't work. He can play. Rimmer doesn't believe him. They take a vote. Kat votes with Lister because of the way he dresses compared to Crichton, and Crichton goes with Lister too because his presence at programming. First thing before they get started, Lister proceeds to get smashed. Nightly drunk, not plastered. And then he has this black and white flashback to, I guess, doing pool in his youth, and he puts the cigarette in his ear. Oh! He takes a shot. Sun flares, planet hits another planet, back into orbit, and the other planet then finally goes off into the white hole. It worked. And he pretends that he meant to do it. It was a trick shot. And now Holly comes back to normal, all the redundant time, because now they exist in a branch of time that never happened. So Talkie the Toaster never occurred, so all this episode becomes a redundant timeline that is now faded out of existence. With Holly being super smart, and all of them are returning to a point where they will have no memory of this as they reemerge back in the normal timeline. And Crichton finally takes the situation to call Rimmer a smeghead as the others fade away. Absolutely hilarious. This is a good episode, I will give it. But next time we have dimension jumps. These last 2 episodes of Series 4 are really good. We're only going to meet Ace Rimmer, and then we'll get to Waxworld. Oh, I love Waxworld. But, like I said, meantime, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that fun stuff. Please keep up with this. We're going here. We're fast for reaching the end of Series 4 here. We're having a lot of fun. But like I said, I'm always open to new ideas about things we could be doing, things we could be sprinkling in, all that fun stuff. So we'll keep rolling along here. In the meantime, if you are interested in some of our other Not Funny Guys material, we have our main podcast, Not Funny Guys Presents Off the Reels, where we do movies. We're currently definitely over halfway now through Star Wars, and we're doing the trilogy chronologically based on in-universe. So we did episode 1, we did episode 2, episode 3. We then went to Solo, then Rogue One. And if you're interested in more stuff about Rogue One, I did my own YouTube on Rogue One and Andor season 1 and 2. You can go back and check those out on the channel. But we did Rogue One again, officially as a whole group. Last time I did it solo. But we also have now gone into episode 4, and episode 5 is coming out now. So we're almost about to get to the sequels. So on how this experience is going to go. But you should check it out because my eldest son gets involved and shares his love of Star Wars in the episodes. If that's not your flavor, we also have Casey and Eric, who are now hot off the beat of being to Horror Nights, Fright Night, whatever it's called, down in Orlando. They did that this past weekend. So I'm sure we'll be getting an update for them very soon. You can check out the channel for here. They put them posting stuff here and over on the socials in the links below. But they also have their podcast, which this was in conjunction with, called Wrestling with the Horror of It All, where they talk about wrestling and horror movies. So check that out. And then if you like something a little bit more academic, or at least, shall we say, discussion, conversation based, me and our not funny gal, Dr. Kristen, do our Thinking About Thinking episodes, where we talk about things we're thinking about. We discuss topics, enjoy a little serendipity sometimes with where we hit upon similar things. We've done recent episodes. We come out once every week. We got a recent episode on American nostalgia and food, and we have another one on liberalism and illiberalism. So check those out. See if you like that a little bit more. But like I said, come back here for more television. So we'll keep that rolling. If you want to write to us, you can check the ticker below or in the description at notfunnyguys.offthereels@gmail.com. You can write us, talk to us, ask us questions. Believe me, we will respond. And we may even very likely air it in an episode somewhere. So please write, ask us questions, anything, any of the podcasts, the YouTube channel, whatever it might be. We love to hear from you guys. But until then, don't be a smeghead. Keep it not funny. And I'll see you next time.